All right. Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. This week, I'm joined by someone who truly embodies what it means to lead with intention without pretending to have it all figured out. Jadonna is a podcast host. She is a social impact professional and a working mom who somehow manages to juggle a full-time job, a weekly podcast, and the ever-evolving challenge of staying connected to her friends, her family, and more importantly, to herself. In this episode, we're going to talk about the realness behind creating meaningful work while raising a family, how Jadonna uses her voice to process out loud and build community, and why asking better questions can be a catalyst for growth, all within the lens of self-love. So, whether you're building something big or just trying your best, like we all are, this conversation is going to remind you that you don't have to have it all figured out to create something impactful. So, welcome, Jadonna. I'm so happy to have you with me today.
So happy to be here. This is so
Yeah.
fun. This is, I
Yeah.
think, the first podcast guest appearance I've done. I have my own that I do, but I've never been on one, I don't think.
Is it kind of trippy? Like you're on the opposite side of the mic, so to
I
speak?
I feel like I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm like thinking and got the producer mindset on.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us, let's start there. Tell us about the podcast, why you created it, what's it all about?
Yeah, so I produce and host a podcast called Jadonna Live. My namesake, I'm Jadonna again. And the whole purpose is to really focus in on self-love, community, and the environment and trying to figure out how we can kind of just bring the best self, the best version of ourselves to those things. I love to say come as you are, but also live like you're trying, which I
Mm.
was talking to my sisters about at one point, and they're like, we don't really like your slogan. We feel like it's an oxymoron. And I'm like, I hear you, but I think it's really important that people know like you can be accepted and show up as who you are right now. Also, knowing that there is more you can achieve, more you can become, and more you can develop into. And I really like to kind of marry those two. And that's really the point of my podcast, again, surrounding those three topics. So, doing an official relaunch in the fall right now, having a lot of fun conversations with friends and really kind of getting to the place where I'm specific across self-love, community, and the environment. But like I said, relaunch in August. But until now, just tightening things up and getting things together and getting organized and ready for that.
It's a fun space to be in, right? Like, I don't know if you're the same, but for me, I feel like my business is constantly evolving because I'm
Yeah.
constantly living like I'm trying. Like I'm constantly growing and doing all of the things that I'm like, can I push my boundary here? Can I feel a little bit of discomfort here? How is this going to be? And when I do it, I find that it almost is an act of self-love just in and of itself, right? Like pushing your boundaries a bit and sort of going for something a little bit more or different, some sort of goal or dream. Like for me, that's really it's an act of self-love because it's something that is just for me. And I think as moms, that's a hard thing for us to do. Do you find that too for yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, I barely have time to even do what I'm doing. But yeah, I feel like constant. I was in therapy. My husband and I were in couples counseling, which highly recommend for everyone ever. And one of the things we were talking about there is how I'm like, well, I'm constantly thinking about what I can do better, and I'm constantly thinking about like what I can work on. And a lot of the times I feel like people can say, why don't you just exist? Like, why don't you just settle? Why don't you just, why are you always thinking? And I felt so affirmed when my therapist said she really respected me because of my like self-examining kind of lifestyle. And I had never heard anyone say that. I feel like for the most part, I've been critiqued for that, but I think that gets at exactly what you are saying. The reason I'm doing that isn't to shame myself and it's not to criticize myself. It's because my goal truly on this earth, and this is extremely existential, but this is just how I operate. We don't know how long we have. We don't know how long we're given. Plenty of stories where, folks maybe left before we anticipated. So it's like, why not try to live how we feel and live in a way that makes sense to us authentically? And for me, that comes with assessing, am I doing what I want? Does this feel like me? Do I like that? Do I feel like I can maintain this? Am I stretching myself too much? Like, what does this feel like and how does this sit with me? And I swear to you, those are the thoughts I'm having every single day across every single thing. But for me, that's authentic and it feels good.
Yeah, I get that because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
And I also recognize that there's a lot of people, like you said, who just aren't in that same mindset or they don't have that same operating system that we do, where we're sort of like constantly searching and looking and growing and shaping ourselves and making sure that our lives intentionally are curated to make us happy and to make sure that we feel like we're getting the most out of it all. And um I had so my book that I wrote, my cousin, I was out for dinner with her the other day and she's like, "Yeah, no, I'm so proud of you and I just don't get it. Like I just don't get why people, not me specifically, but why
Yeah.
folks would want to constantly work all the time on themselves, like everyday work." And I'm like, "I don't understand how you can't."
Mm.
Like, it's so funny. And so I'm curious to know your perspective on someone who might be listening, like my cousin, who
Yeah.
doesn't have the same sort of push for constant learning and growth and all of this self-examination. What would your advice be on like how you can dip your toe into this lifestyle without it feeling overwhelming? Like, what are some small things that you do?
Yeah. Well, first off, I would say my goal, and I don't believe that anyone should be doing anything they don't want to do. Like, I mean, that's literally the crux of why I just said what I said. I'm doing it because I want to. If you are not interested, in self-examination and you kind of just like want to be and you feel like that's all you have space and capacity for, please do that. It is hard enough to work, to pay bills, to keep your mental self together, to raise your family, to get your workouts in. So I I don't know that it needs to be the thing for every single person, if I'm completely honest. I
Mm.
do it because it works for me. And that's kind of where like the come as you are piece of my kind of podcast mantra is. There is absolutely no pressure, and I will not be putting any pressure on anyone to do that. With regards to how I do it and why it works for me, and some of the things I kind of think about to make it a little easier. One would just be like self-reflection time. And I was just telling my husband this morning, I was like, I haven't been doing my affirmations and I haven't been writing. I've been doing a lot of verbal processing, which is good, but I know for me, a lot of my self-examination and the kind of next steps that come with taking better actions happen when I'm reflecting and when I'm writing down and kind of tracing that stuff really like physically so I can see it day to day, week to week, month to month, whatever. And so I would say like writing, journaling maybe sounds even too intense, but even like jotting things down on your phone, getting your notes app out and just being like, oh, today went blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't have to be some intense thing. It doesn't even have to be writing it down. If you're so unfamiliar with self-examination that writing maybe feels like too big of a hurdle, even just chatting with your friends and they're like, how's life? Maybe taking that moment where you would normally say, oh, good. And maybe just like pausing and actually challenging yourself to answer that authentically. It can be something as little as that. But another piece of it I would say is just the pockets of space you have in your day, which our friend Jill calls
Hmm.
time confetti, where you have, opportunities to really leverage that time as being useful. I would also add, like, if you have pockets of time, not picking up your phone, not picking up social media, and just kind of like sitting and just being like so many of us have no time in our day, especially us mamas after work. It's like you put your kid down and you sit down and you want to just like whip out your phone or work on something or clean because you haven't had the time to do it. Okay, let's do that because that's necessary, but also just like pause and take a breath, take a beat, look around. How do I feel? Like, are my shoulders really high? Me in this exact moment asking myself that. Yes, they are. Great. Okay, let's lower them a little. Like, how am I in this moment? How do I feel? Is this moment serving me? How can it serve me better? And just really having some constant like reflection when
Hmm.
you can.
I love that. And I love utilizing time confetti for this purpose because it's natural moments that happen throughout all of our days. And you don't have to use every free moment to like
Yeah.
dive into this, but it's a really good prompt, right? To be able to say, like, oh, yeah. is my body doing? How is my brain doing? How is the day going? Like, how am I actually feeling? And I challenge myself to do the exact thing that you had mentioned when someone asks, how are you? Like, if my
Mhm.
aunt, if my answer is tired or busy or good, like, no, try again, Jill. That is not accurate. Well, it's likely accurate, but it's not deep enough. You know,
Yeah.
how am I? It's an opportunity for me to really be like, oh yeah, right. I don't know. It is hard sometimes, even as someone who is self-aware, it's difficult to drop into that depth because we're
Very
just
true.
going and going and surface level, like getting through the muck of the day can be really just survival mode, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's where I go back to the you don't have to answer that way all the time. You don't have to reflect every single time. It's like when you have the capacity to do these things, do them. And when you don't, there is absolutely, I do not, like, I say I don't believe in shame, where even though that's something I'm working on with myself, but it's like there's no shame in not being able to do that stuff all the time. It's like do it when you can.
Mhm.
And that's the freedom you have being able to, live another day and operate another day. You can do something tomorrow better than you did it yesterday and have no pressure, just like be freed up to just try something new.
Yeah. And then the following day, you might slip backwards or like quote backwards. And
Yeah.
that's cool too. Like the seasons
Yeah.
of energy and the seasons of life and like nothing is meant to be constant all the time, which is something that I'm constantly sort of thinking about and giving myself grace about is that
Whew.
what works today in this season is not going to be the same as what works next year or what worked last 10 years ago, right? Like I remember we were talking about this. I don't know if it was in the ABC when I was talking about time management, but you're like, okay, like how when I've got this little babe? And I'm like, maybe it's not the
Yeah.
season, right? Like sometimes it's just not the season to do all the things that we want to do, and that's really tough. But I love that you're sort of calling out that, the shame has no space here because there's no point. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And oftentimes it's like, the shame doesn't serve me in the long run. I'm like, oh, dang it. I didn't. Like with my affirmations practice and my writing practice, I'm like, gosh, I haven't been doing that. I know that works for me. If I spend all my time bullying myself over the fact that I haven't done that, when am I gonna have like the oomph and the energy and the confidence to then re-enter that space? I'm gonna feel so ashamed. I'm likely gonna procrastinate or feel awkward. And you understand, again, parents, adults, people who are just busy, we don't have time to be like mulling over all the things we didn't do right all the time. There's too much to do that, to be
Right.
honest. At least that's how I feel. Weekly podcast, doing stuff with my kid, I don't have time. So I'm like, okay, if if the lulling is gonna make me feel a way that doesn't serve me, it's like, okay, how do I figure out how to kind of like get out of that mindset? I don't struggle personally with depression. I know for folks who have depressive tendencies or like severe anxiety, it's not as easy as just thinking like, oh, let me pop out of this mindset and do something else. So I'm sensitive to the fact that I know that's not the case for everyone. But for me, it's just something I try to kind of keep on my mind. If I know certain thoughts aren't serving me, I'm like, okay, let's assess that and try to do
Mm-hmm.
something different.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I like something just sort of clicked for me when you said that like we don't have time for this self-deprecation and all the like it takes mental load and I was just imagining like putting on our to-do list like blame self and sit in shame and can you imagine if that was something that was on our to-do list like it takes up time like it is right
Yep.
like it's crazy. It's crazy. And
Yeah.
so I also want to touch on the fact that you do a lot of verbal processing because I do the same and I find it
Yeah.
so much easier and free flowy for me to do like a verbal journal, like a verbaling instead of a journaling, because I can do it anywhere. And I wonder, have you always done that, or did you kind of come into that realization that that's helpful for you, or?
I love astrology. I am an Aries. I'm very like kind of 0 to 100, very intense energy. So I don't know that like growing up and I would have known that like, oh wow, I do better in life when I am very like outward. If I'm mad, I will yell. If I'm happy, I will squeal. If I'm, frustrated, I'll scream. And so, sure, that may not be like processing specific words, but definitely follows that same thing of processing emotions and like not just letting feelings kind of like stay inside. I think as I have gotten more honed in on my creativity, I have learned that, and really with the podcast as well as I'm prepping for it, if I don't have someone to talk to and I need to process something and I just am too overwhelmed by writing it down, I will whip out my phone often on a walk as well, because then you're kind of like already in motion and you're I just like literally talk to myself about stuff. And I actually need to do that for a presentation I need to do. But it just helps kind of get the ball rolling, and then I listen to it back and I take notes from it, and then I can kind of like categorize when I'm listening back to it to make sure I caught the essence of what I'm trying to say, because
Mm.
that's what I feel like recording really does. I feel like when I just try to type, sometimes I get so in my head, I'm like, this has to be good, this has to make sense. But when I just articulate it the way that I do, and then I take notes after, I'm like, oh, like you catch the spirit of it all, which then you can like package with your words instead of just kind of typing the words first.
That's so fantastic. I love that description, and you're absolutely right. That is such a wonderful and sort of just like vibrant way to describe what's happening, right? Like when you
Yeah.
do this verbal brain dump, for lack of a better term. And I think that you're right. Like I find the same thing when I'm walking. It'll often be a time where the creative juices are flowing. Like if I'm in nature,
Uh,
there's nothing else to do, you know? And so your brain can settle down a little bit. And it's the same thing that
yeah.
happens like when you're in the shower and you get your best ideas. It's because
Every time.
or like for me right before bed, I get so
Oh,
creative before bed.
huh.
Yeah.
I actually that happened to me. Okay. It was like a couple months ago. It was super late and I had an idea come to me at like 12:30 a.m., which I never usually stay up that late. But I posted on TikTok. I was like, who else is getting ideas at this hour? Like, what is happening? So many people were like, my best ideas always come at night. It's at night, and it's at night. And someone else was like, yeah, it's like a scientific, I don't know, there's some sort of thing that's like when you are finally alleviated of all the stressors of the day, you've got the freedom, your mind's freed up to be able to have thoughts flow in and flow out, and you are just able to have more creativity, I guess. But
Yep. Yeah.
yeah,
100%. And because nobody's talking to you or touching you or needing you, right? Like, I don't know. I have no capacity for anything but like mothering when the children are around. It's hilarious. And I so wish I did because sometimes I'll be like ignoring everyone and everything other than like whatever child is in front of me that needs something. But
yeah,
that's like my survival mode. I feel like I'm constantly in survival mode when the kids are around. And so, there's no room for this creativity. There's no room for me to take, even those time confetti moments because I find if I pop out of, I don't know, it just feels like I'm in the vortex. Do you know what I mean?
no, I absolutely do, because I've been trying to figure out like, is it realistic for me to whip my computer out or whip my phone out when my kid gets home from school just so I don't feel as much stress to like get all this stuff done? And every time I'm like, nope, just
Same.
wait until he's in bed, because you have split brain until he's
Yes.
down. It's like it's not even possible. It's not,
No.
at least
It's
for
like
me, it's not possible.
it's not, and it's multitasking really, even though you're not necessarily doing, well, I guess you are doing two tasks at once, but the idea of like splitting your capacity of your brain in two different, very different areas. I used to
Yeah,
do a job where it was in like event planning. So I had to plan the event, but at the same time, I was selling events. So it was like selling brain and planning brain, and they were two completely different things. And yet,
very.
through any course of the day, depending on who was calling me or which email came in, I would need to flip, and it was so unsustainable. It was awful.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that's where kind of like the time management piece that I do not have together at all is so important. Like knowing your day enough to kind of figure out like when will I have that capacity for creativity, and when do I know that that's just not an option for me. So you are less hard on yourself. I think for me, like I moved last year. back home where I was born and raised in the Midwest in Indiana. And I am in such a different routine, like new house, new city, new job, new daycare for my kid, husband got a new job, new car. It's like everything is new and started doing the podcast weekly. And so I'm not in a rhythm still. And
Mhm.
I have now lived where I live since January of 2024. And I'm like, gosh, okay, when am I going to get in a rhythm just for my kid to start a new school in the fall? And so I think that's the thing I did not know going into adulthood that like would be so consistent is change. It's like when
Mm.
you think about it, it makes sense. But I think growing up, you're like, okay, I have elementary school, then middle school, then high school, I have college, and sure, things change in between. But you've got these really long-standing chunks of time that you can kind of count on. And then in adulthood, it's like things happen outside your control all the time that are significant things that don't happen when you've got like nothing else to do and really just trying to figure out like, okay, how do I keep certain times to myself to be able to like still produce effectively? And I actually have a question for you based on that.
Yeah.
When do you wake up? Because I
Um,
know a lot of parents are like, oh, this is the only time I can do stuff is in the morning. And is that a thing for you? Do you wake up like before your kids so you can do stuff before they?
so I am an early bird, but I specifically do not wake up before my kids on purpose because they wake up really early. But when they're not here with me on the off weeks, I still wake up early. But I find that it doesn't work for me to wake up earlier than they do because I know I'll be tired and I'm very ineffective when I'm tired. I'm self-aware of that. I am not someone who does well on less than 9 hours of sleep. Like it just is not, I'm terrible. So all that to say, I do wake up early. So do my kids, but we found this rhythm now that they're old enough. The younger two are going to be 6 and 8 next week. And it's like they can get up, they can pull out, their tablet and watch some YouTube while I have a coffee. And so it's this really sweet space where we're all kind of waking up together.
Yeah.
Um, but I also go to bed really early. And so I find that I have to fit in my productive time during the day. I specifically don't take extra time out of my sleep to get it. You
Mm,
know what I mean? But
I
it works for some people. If you need less sleep, go for it.
yeah. No.
Not me.
Not me either. And that's why I'm like, I gotta figure this out because I
Hmm.
need sleep. Same with you. I'm like, if it's not 9, I'm not fine or whatever. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
kind of cute.
Oh,
But
I
it's
like
like
that.
I can't I know I cannot function. And exactly like you, like if I am trying to do anything else, I've always told my husband like I was the one who was sleeping in high school
Yeah.
because like sleep wins. Sleep will overtake anything I need to do. I will always bow to sleep. So, it's something I'm trying to figure out. Like if I don't want to wake up super early or have FOMO by going to bed early too, how
Yeah.
the heck I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
Yeah, and it's such a unique thing to try to figure out what that looks like in our lives, right? But I think the place I always tell people to start is like what's truly urgent and important, because if it's not urgent, it can go on a to-do list for later or be scheduled, right? In a time where you've got a bit more space or for a different season altogether, perhaps like when the kids are in school full time or when and if it's urgent but not super important, it's like, okay, but do I have to do it? Like, is this something I can delegate? Can I give this task to another person, outsource it, pay someone to do it? And then of course, if it's neither urgent nor important, you just don't do it. Because in this
Yeah.
season, if it's not urgent or important, it does not need to get done. So
Whew.
that's kind of how I operate, right? Yeah.
I it's just it's a tough one because you have to have like a level of maturity.
Yeah. And
For
self-reflection. As we've been talking about, it's so funny. It always comes back to this, the beginning of the conversation, which is what I love so much about podcasting. We were talking in the beginning about being self-aware and self-reflective. And if you don't take the time to notice your natural rhythms, to notice when you have more energy, to notice when you feel stressed, to notice how much sleep you need, if you are unaware of these things, and like we said, you do you.
yeah.
But I personally find that once I have this information about myself, I can use it to be really intentional about how I move through life in a way that feels good and I get my things done without having guilt about not getting certain things done. Right?
Yeah. No, it's so true. And I think along with that, I have realized that when I am kind of knocking everything out of the park, the natural instinct in me that just likes to do something a little different and just like pop out and see what happens can kind of like inch up, inch up, inch up, and then like take over again. So I think for me, it's just this like dichotomy of like I know what I need to do to be super organized and super successful, but I also love to be able to just like shove all that away and do whatever I want at any point.
Hmm.
And so I think that's what I'm still trying to like integrate is how can I be structured? Maybe like it's only structured during the week. And then the weekends, I can feel like I can be like my free self that isn't controlled or held down by anything again because I know that I need both of those feelings or I'm gonna just like relent to the flow and it's gonna be a mess, but I'll be happy.
Right. You need banks to your river, right? You need
Yeah,
some structure so that life doesn't go completely sideways, but that allows you to flow within those frameworks, right?
exactly.
What you need is my planner. Yes, you need my planner because this is exactly how we do it. And it's specifically like something that I have found works for the majority of people that I'm in contact with, either whether it just be like friends and family and networking and or clients or whatever. It's like
Yeah,
people crave that flexibility and they want some space in their lives so that they don't
yeah.
feel like it's just heavy and blocked and structured all the time. And yet, oddly enough, the way to get that is by putting a few boundaries and structures in place. So it's so funny that you bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to realize again if you're not kind of doing that reflection to know because I feel like what's the quote? Like, your perception is your reality.
Mm,
So if you are perceiving that you have no time to do anything, or if you're perceiving that like you're just completely disorganized, whether it's true or not, that will just feel like the reality to you. And that's where that self-reflection comes into play. It's like, okay, what does your week actually look like? What are you actually spending your time on? And then you kind of realize, oh, I've, I'm on my phone a lot.
right.
Or I am just like vegging out doing nothing because I felt like all my meetings were taking over, but I really only have 4 1-hour meetings in the day. You know, you kind of realize,
Yes.
oh, well, my brain's maybe playing some tricks on me. And then you're able to then assess and then reevaluate and implement something different.
Oh my God, this is so good. I am leaving this conversation feeling so jazzed up and just like encouraged and affirmed and like in community. I'm so glad that we were able to do this and sort of share this perspective with the listeners because it's a bit different than maybe people are used to hearing. And I love that because it's something that if we really consider self-reflection and self-love and all of the different pieces of our life and how to personalize something to us, it can create a huge change, which you might not even know you need, right?
Yeah.
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 Man, okay. So if people are listening and they're like, I love Jadonna, I want to learn from her, I want to listen to her podcast, how are they best to connect with you? Like you said, you're on TikTok. What are the places that you like to hang with people virtually?
Well, oh my God. First, I would say thanks, girl or guy. Um, but yeah, you can follow me at Jadonna_live on TikTok, Instagram, and I think that's all, TikTok and Instagram. And then I'm also, on LinkedIn. My website is jadonnalive.com. It is in construction, and we will be re-releasing when I relaunch my podcast in mid-August. So yeah, follow me and Yeah, this was so fun, Jill. Thanks for the invite. Always love chatting with you. Jill's the best. So if you are only listening to this episode because you know of me, go back and listen to Jill's other episodes because she's got over 200, has been doing
Right?
this for a while. I was like, whoa.
I know.
So love
It's a
that.
lot. Thank you. Same. I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed and that we are
Yeah.
connected. And I love everything that you're about and that you stand for. And I'm excited to be on your podcast too.
I
So
know,
we'll make
coming
sure that
soon.
we do a little linky in the show notes so people can hear us continue the conversation over there. But yeah, thanks again. This has been
Sweet.
so fun.
So fun. So fun.
And to everyone who is still here listening with us, until next week, keep on growing like a mother.